pain, it's impossible to heal.
You have to sit in the pain. It's so true. And I think, and that's where all addiction comes from.
Yeah.
In whatever, whether it's a substance, processed food, whatever, we don't want to sit in the uncomfortable emotions.
Welcome to the Recovery Roundtable podcast, where the journey to sobriety opens up through powerful discussions and shared experiences. Join your host, Mark, who will bring you stories of triumph and resilience from the heart of Pacific Shores recovery. Every episode offers insights and support, guiding you through the challenges of addiction recovery. Thank you for joining our community. If you're ready to start or continue your recovery journey, we're here to inspire and support you. Let's explore recovery together.
Then it's just conversation, just back and forth, just wanting to get to know you and kind of share your story and what you do. So who are you and where'd you come from?
Where did I come from? That's a great question. Thank you, Mark, first of all. Yeah, this is great that you get to have conversations with people in the community and then share them. We all need to share more with each other.
Yeah, well, so often people feel alone.
Yes.
Like I know, so I battled depression. I wrote about it in my book, but battled it at such a place where I thought I was alone and no one understood.
Yes.
And once I started sharing, holy crap, it's everywhere. And it helps alleviate that. So yeah, that's why I'm so excited for you to share your story, because someone's going to hear it at the right place and the right time and say, I thought I was alone. That's my story. And it actually, there's a happy ending. This is amazing.
Yes, I hope so. The older I get, the more I realize how similar we are. Even though we've had different circumstances, we're really experiencing the same human experience.
Yeah, we're all just wanting to be seen and to be heard and held and told it's okay.
Yes. So, my name is Mashi. Hi, thanks for having me. I'm from New Jersey originally. That's where I grew up. I've lived in LA now for about 7-8 years and been in the whole recovery world, mental health space for about 3.
What got you into that world?
I'm like, where do I start,
Wherever your heart tells you to.
Yeah. I started my life over, basically, from the beginning when I was about 21. Growing up in a super sheltered, contained environment, which was beautiful in many ways. It gave me a sense of community and belonging, which is still something that's so dear to my heart and something that I try and cultivate in the world. And there was a lot of beauty in growing up in a environment that was very secluded almost from the rest of the world. However, a lot of that did not resonate with me and my soul and life path. And it took me a long time to recognize that and to start to trust my own intuition and my own journey. So that's been a lot of my story, really navigating my internal and external world and learning to trust myself more than anything, because ultimately in a world where we know so little, like whatever people claim, we just don't know anything. We can only trust our own experience and what it is that we intuitively know and what it is that we would like to give to the world. And so, going off on like a philosophical tangent, but
no, that's all right. You're talking about internal. So what was your internal part saying?
I was extremely miserable, unhappy, depressed. I had an eating disorder for 4 years before I even was conscious of the fact that I was unhappy, which was, my spirit's way of kind of just acting out, like they call it the good girls drug, right?
Yeah.
Where it was a manifestation of just not feeling aligned inside, and like I was able to be my fullest expression of who I am. So it was pretty challenging. My teenage years, I was completely shut off from my emotions. In hindsight, you know, it's never about the food or the drug or the substance, right? It's always about the escaping.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was a lot of fear around my own power, like not wanting to face who I am because, well, if I am all of this, then I feel this obligation almost to share that, to go out into the world and to live that fully. And that can be a very scary experience when the rhetoric that you're being taught is that no, you need to squelch your desire. You need to not do what you want to do because that's not what you're supposed to do.
So do you think the eating disorder was kind of a subconscious way to kind of sedate that desire of you to want to do more?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So what happened where you became aware of this isn't truly who I'm meant to be?
It wasn't really one defining moment, but it was a series of experiences where I realized that there was just no other choice. I tried so hard to make it work in the community that I came from. Being the, you know, good girl, not wanting to disappoint anybody, right? That's like so classic for humans and women and just people. And that's something that I continue to work through, and I consider that one of the things I'm here to teach, hopefully, or just, you know, lead by example of just, no, not everyone's gonna like you. Not everyone's gonna be happy with you. People are gonna be disappointed, and that is okay. Because a lot of what I was struggling with at that time was not wanting to disappoint my family, my community. But there came a point where I realized that I was disappointing myself, and that couldn't be right.
Yeah, that's a lot to carry. I can't have anybody disappointed with me at
Yeah,
any time for any reason.
It's way too much. It's way too much. Yeah.
Okay, so there's an eating disorder, and then that kind of, when were you aware that it wasn't in alignment with who you were?
So I went to treatment when I was 19. I went to Laureate in Oklahoma.
So was that from you, or was it your family saying you need help?
That was from me.
Okay.
Previously, I had gone to a bunch of facilities that did not work because it wasn't from me. I was extremely resistant. Mostly because recovery just didn't seem enticing at all. Yeah. It felt like here I had something that I was able to hold on to and control and understand. So I went to a bunch of therapists, and it was very not fun. It was very not fun. My parents trying to force me to eat, me really wanting to get better, but internally there was something missing. It had to come from me, and feeling so misunderstood in my environment, and also very determined at nobody knowing, right? So a lot of guilt and a lot of shame and
a lot of masks.
Yes, so many.
So what you just referenced, something was missing. What was that one thing that was missing?
It was probably a belief in myself.
How does one find belief in themselves?
Ain't that the question? For me, it was really taking time away, spending time with myself, away from everybody. And then something inside me, right, that spark that we all have, that, call it whatever you want, but it was like, there's gotta be more. You deserve to be happy. There's gotta be something more than this miserable existence of hiding and of shame and of guilt and of just living such a small life. And I always wanted that. I just wasn't really ready, but there did come a time. It was after I graduated high school. I went to Israel for a year, and it was also just very challenging internally. Like, my eating disorder got even worse.
Why Israel?
That was the norm in my community. When you graduate high school, you kind of go to like a seminary.
Okay.
After that. So for a lot of like normal girls, I should say, or whatever, like people that are just doing the thing and they go through high school and graduate, and it's a great, really amazing year for them because it's the one time that they are alone, away from their family before they get married, basically.
So it sounds like it's religious reasons.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Religious, and it wasn't a religious must, but a cultural norm.
Yeah.
So I was excited, and during that time, in hindsight, I can recognize that there was a huge disconnect between what I was portraying on the outside, like what I was, like my mask I was wearing, and then how I was really feeling, to the point where I wasn't even in touch with it at all. Like I was so good. I guess that's where acting comes in. Like I was so good at just putting on a show and being that girl. Like on the outside, everything looked, for the most part, fine. I mean, people that knew me weren't stupid, but they played along with my game. Like people will do that.
Yeah, it's interesting at how much individuals think they're hiding it,
Oh yeah.
but it's so obvious, and people don't know how to have that conversation many times. They feel like they're walking on eggshells.
Yes.
And so there's this really incredibly awkward dynamic of, it's like everybody wants everybody to heal, but they don't know what to do. So you were doing that dance back and forth.
Yes.
You thought you were hiding it. They kind of just were letting it go. So you go to Israel, and then you said it started to progress.
Yes. By the time I came back, my mom took one look at me and started crying. At that point, I became aware, like, this is not okay. Like, I wanna get help. Working through what everybody was gonna think of me was a big one.
Yeah.
People laugh at that when I tell them that today because, you know, thankfully I've gotten to a place where I'm not gonna say I don't care at all, but it's not gonna stop me from doing what I know is right for me. But back then it was so, I couldn't even imagine the oh my God, how can I leave and go to treatment? Like, also remember, I grew up in a small town where everybody knows everybody, and it just felt like a super big deal at the time.
Well, it's a protective mechanism, right? And
Yeah.
it's human nature. And as we start to research and look into it, it's because we're tribal people in a community.
Yes.
If we're excommunicated, it meant death, like to
Totally.
our ancestors, and so the DNA gets passed down. So it's interesting to see, because there's this wonderful book called "The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying" by Nurse Beatty, and she's a hospice nurse, and at the final stage of life, and she started seeing patterns of, there were 5 regrets that almost every single person either had all of them or one of them. And one of the biggest ones people have once they have the maturity of end of life experience, stating, I wish I would have been more true to myself and not cared so much what other people think.
Wow.
And
that's
it's
so
like
good.
we know it internally,
Yeah.
but yet our behavior, like we stick our behavior on the whole premise of, I don't want to disappoint people, especially
Yes.
mom and dad, community. And so there was this internal battle. How were you able to overcome that and say, I'm going to put me first this time?
2 things. First of all, it got so bad where I was getting scared for my own life. Like my heart would like beat so fast I thought it was gonna stop. And that was just scary. I was coming face to face with my own mortality, and I was like, what am I doing to myself? Like, why? And then secondly, I realized as I matured, I was about 19 at the time, that nobody really cares that much. People are very preoccupied with themselves. And I was really doing myself a tremendous disservice. And thank God I realized that, because I started taking my life into my own hands, and I was one making the phone calls. And I remember I did my intake with Floriette in the car, and I was like, I was so weak at the time. I couldn't move. But I felt so relieved because I was determined that I was gonna get help, and I did, and I stayed there for 8 months. So grateful for that time. I quickly realized that, well, first of all, you can't really think when your brain is starving.
Well, also, what made you stay there for 8 months? Because the biggest thing we see is 30 days, I'm cured, I'm out.
Yeah.
So how are you able to say, I am putting me first? I call it healthy selfish,
Yeah.
for 8 months.
That's a good question. Well, first of all, I needed it. Like I had to
Mm,
do a whole refeeding process, and so while I didn't need 8, I needed at least. It took me at least 3 to get to like a healthy
mhm,
weight, and then I was doing a lot of therapy. There was so much to uncover, and in
mm,
some ways, I was. This was just the beginning of my journey because I was still um, very unaware of who I really was at the time, to the point where. Uh, for the first time in my life, I started wearing pants when I was in treatment. I was still keeping kosher, still keeping all of the
mhm,
religious traditions that I was brought up with. And that seemed to me like a non negotiable at the time. I could not imagine a life where I was not doing that. And I'll never forget my therapist, Crystal. Shout out to Crystal, if she ever sees this. She was an amazing clinician, and she really challenged me on that. I remember she told me in one of our sessions, Mashi, you can do whatever you want. And I was like, no, I can't. And she said, yeah, you actually can. Like you can totally do whatever you want. You can wear whatever you want. You can, observe or not observe. And I just looked at her and I was like, no, you don't understand. But slowly over the time over there, being away from everybody, having time to myself, really for the first time in my entire life, I have a large family. I'm the oldest of 6 children. There was always a lot going on. I was always the oldest, so I took on that responsibility pretty seriously. I was a great student. I was the leader. Like there was never did I shared a room with my sister for 18 years of my life. Like it was really the first time ever that I got to just vibe out with me. And I really liked what I found. And that
mm.
that was shocking. I was like, wow, I'm so fun.
It sounds like you gave yourself permission to sit in the pain that you'd been sedating,
Yes.
and through that pain, you found that true, genuine version of you that you actually fell in love with. Is that accurate?
Yes. Not fully then, but I
Well, it's a
started to.
process, but that's
Yeah.
what most people miss, right? Is I don't like how I'm feeling. I don't know who I am, so I'm gonna continue to sedate. And if you don't sit in
Yes.
the pain, it's impossible to heal.
You have to sit in the pain. It's so true. And I think and that's where all addiction comes from.
Yeah.
In whatever, whether it's a substance, process, food, whatever, we don't want to sit in the uncomfortable emotions. And that's so valid. It's not fun, but ultimately we have to. We have to. It's the only way we're going to be able to embrace all of the parts of ourselves. If we're only loving the good parts of ourselves and
Mm,
we don't embrace the shadow parts of ourselves, then the second something challenging comes up, we're just going to want to run away from it. And then how can we go out into the world and face all the shadows of the world and all of the things going on around us? And even before that, in our personal experience, how can we face the challenging, the rejection, the
mhm.
the people not liking us, the hard things that just come with being alive? And so you're totally right. I'm so grateful for that time. And you know, it was really and that's why I encourage people to spend as much time as they can away. Every situation's different, but it's so important for a lot of people because we don't take the time to do that.
Mhm.
And and yeah, I mean, I'm yeah, I haven't thought about that of like, oh, how was I able to stay 8 months even though I was so afraid? So yeah, I'm having a moment of appreciation for that.
Mm, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you mentioned something that I absolutely love about loving all the parts of you.
Yeah.
How were you able to get to a part where you loved the darkness or the shadow parts?
um it took a while. Recovering from my eating disorder was like the first leg of my journey,
Hmm.
but I came back home and had a very rude awakening because I thought that, oh, I'm cured now of my eating disorder. I am going to be peachy. I can go get married now like everyone else. That's what everybody was doing. Um, Everything's going to be great. I come back to New Jersey and I get a job. I was decided I'm going to be a nurse practitioner. I get a job in the medical field. I'm in school, and I am freaking out because, now that the eating disorder was cured, I was exactly what I feared was happening. I was like, well, here I am. I have all of this life force coursing through me. What do I do with it? I don't fit in here. Oh no. Oh no. Like, this is bad. And it was an interesting time. I was really trying to make it work. It's like, okay, well, maybe I need to how can I make myself happy? Maybe I need to help others. So I became a counselor at one of these summer camps for struggling teens. Mind you, I was like 19, right? I'm like 2 years older than these kids and didn't have any training. But it was good. It did give me some gratification. But I still had so much, like, I wasn't healed. Like, there was so much, I wasn't ready really to help other people yet. And so slowly I started rebelling. That's what it looked like from the outside. I wasn't doing anything bad. But to my parents and community, wearing pants is rebellion. So yeah, I was rebelling hardcore. And it didn't feel like a choice. It just felt like I could not be here anymore. And I was getting set up with these rabbis to go date and marry. And that was interesting. I remember looking at them being like, are we in the same reality? Like, this doesn't make sense. So it was kind of comical. Not then, but now. Yeah. And, but it was confusing. It was super confusing. And my parents didn't understand what was happening. They were so thrilled that I had recovered finally. Their good girl, their perfect, oldest child was going to be good now. And I slowly, just naturally started like leaving everything I was taught. And that's when I started using drugs. That's when I started, just kind of exploring if eating disorders are the good girl's drug, now I started doing the bad girl things because I finally had enough confidence almost to do that. So that's what started happening. I was still very depressed, still very confused, and I was confused at how confused I was. I was like, everything's supposed to be great now. I've recovered. Why am I still feeling so miserable? If anything, I was more miserable because I was feeling more. And I left my parents' home, moved into my friend's basement, had like a bunch of just crazy months, just drugs, like men, right? Like exploring my sexuality for the first time. That was very rebellious. You're not allowed to touch a man the way that I grew up. So it was just like all these normal things that I guess teenagers experience, I had never experienced. And it was very interesting. Yeah, I could share a lot about that time, but I think it was really another stepping stone to get me to where I needed to be. So eventually I ended up moving to New York with this woman I'd fallen in love with. And I just went the other extreme as I could. And again, like it wasn't anything, like thank God, right? The measuring stick for my rebellion was, in the scheme of things, pretty chill, which I'm grateful for. It could have been a lot worse. It felt like, I was doing all these bad things, but in actuality, I was going through my teenage phase that I'd never really gone through.
Right.
I got involved with some, not good people, but that didn't last very long because I guess I have a set of values that I'm very grateful for that continue to guide me. And so with, all of even though I may not agree with the way that I was brought up, and I don't consider myself a religious person at all. To me, that is like something created by man. I, the values that I got from that upbringing continue to guide me, and for that I am forever grateful. And so I learned through this whole experience, and this is a tangent, but I think it's an important one, that things aren't black and white. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. People are all shades of gray. I can love my family infinitely and also disagree with them. We can disagree with each other as humans and still love each other. That is actually the way that we need to be to get to the places that we need to go going forward, because division isn't going to get us there. It's certainly not. And so through all of these experiences, took me a long time. I didn't talk to my parents for a couple years, which was super painful for them and for me. My siblings, who I love dearly, we were just, they didn't really understand me, and I just needed my space. But it is possible. I can attest that it is possible to disagree with people and get along. And even though these disagreements are extremely fundamental to the fabric of who we are as humans. So, anyway, so I'm grateful that, nothing too terrible happened, but I was extremely miserable, not functional.
It sounds like you started at that point turning to drugs as opposed to the eating disorder.
Yeah.
And then did you get help with that? How did you?
I did.
Okay.
I went to Sierra Tucson in Arizona, which was another really incredible experience, and I'm so grateful.
So what led you to knowing that you needed the help for that as well?
I saw how impactful Laureate was for me, how amazing it was to go away. And I was also in a lot of recovery communities at the time. I was really just trying to find belonging. So I was kind of using drugs while also trying to be like a part of AA. I was doing my best. Doing my best.
Well, that's how most people get introduced to it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was around a lot of people that had gone to rehab, and I really didn't know what else to do. I didn't see any hope for my life. And I was like, I didn't leave everything that I knew and loved to again be miserable. Like this can't be right. So I went there. Thankfully, I was there for 30 days. So not crazy long, but a good amount of time, and then really enough time for me to get my head on straight. And realize that, it brought me back to the place that I found at Laureate of, I can breathe. Like, I am okay. I actually do enjoy my own company and myself. And how can I just do that more? And what do I need to do to get there? Even though it's very scary, I knew I needed to make a drastic change. And then after that, I had nowhere to go. Like, oh, do you want to go to California? I'm like, sounds fun. So I went to California. And that was when I basically started over. It felt like from scratch. I'm like, okay, I am like an infant getting to know the world. And I'm, again, really grateful because it was a lot, but it excited me. And I was so excited about all of the rewiring of my brain that I had to do.
So how did you go from hopeless and miserable to finding that hope and actually excited for the future?
That's a good question. Like, was it a one moment? It was really I really credit treatment for that, because I found belonging and community and people that saw me. And that was really all it took. And I think that's what it takes for most people. It's really, we overcomplicate everything. All we need is people to just accept us for who we are and encourage us to be better. And that was really what it was for me. And by the time I was finished my 30 days, I was scared, sure, but I knew that whatever I was going to had to be better than what I was leaving. And that feeling stayed with me of being accepted and of getting to know myself in a way that I never had before. And then also working through a lot of the religious guilt and shame, which I absolutely adore helping other people work through now, because I just resonate with that so much. And there's just so much life on the other side of letting guilt and shame rule your life. And I also did some really great family therapy in Sierra Tucson. My parents came to Arizona, which was so amazing, and my therapist there was great. And it really encouraged me. I wasn't going to have them. I wasn't even going to tell them. We still weren't really talking, but they came there and got to see me in my life. And it was so new for them. They were, my dad looks like a rabbi, they were just like walking around and so out of place for the first time in their life, because they're so used to being in their community where everybody's like them. So for them, that was big. And they got to see a whole other world that existed, and how happy I was. They got to see it, that I was happy, and I don't think they'd seen me happy in a long time.
So what did it take for you to find that happiness?
Expression of self, and recognizing that there's nothing to be scared of in my expression. Like, I don't have anything to be ashamed about more than anybody else. And that, it's so simple, really, but it helped me realize that, we're all the same. And just because I may have an experience that's different from a lot of people, like I came to LA and was very ashamed of my upbringing, because I didn't know a lot about secular culture and like pop music or like TV, and I still don't. I know, whatever. It's still something that I'm like, sorry guys, I just don't know that reference. But, I realized soon that we all have our own stories, and we all have our pros and cons that make us who we are. And sure, maybe that's a con that I have, but the pro is that I have amazing values, and that I was taught to love other people, and it might not have been in a way that might have been different, but the values are the same. And I got a good education, right? It's like, just weighing the different pros and cons, and like recognizing that I can accept this. I can accept this. And the acceptance of who we are is tough, especially for people that have had really hard experiences in life that weren't fair. Like, life is not fair to any of us. And that's something that I personally have had to work through and try and, help others as I do what I do, helping people find the help that they need and getting them to the right place for them. Helping us all as humans to just accept the cards that we've been dealt, because it's hard. Some of us have been dealt unfair cards, and I wish that wasn't the case. And that is, life is harsh. It is. And the more that we can accept that, and whatever it takes to do that, having the right people around you, going to the right programs and therapies. And for me, I don't take it for granted that I was young, and it was relatively easy. And I don't take for granted that it's not always that easy. Not to say that it felt easy at the time, but in hindsight. So there was a lot of discernment that I had to learn. A lot.
One thing that you said is that you were able to go through the experience when you were young. And we see a lot of young people struggle thinking, oh, I've got time. How did you navigate that mindset to say, I want my whole life to represent something that I'm proud of, I feel connected to, because we see that wrestle all the time.
Yeah. Oh my God. I tell this to young people all the time. I'm like, please do yourself a favor. Like, do it now. It only gets harder, and we don't have time. That's the trap. We always think we have time. And I think for me, I just was so pent up for so many years that it just exploded out of me. Like I couldn't get enough of life. It's like I just want to do everything. I want to experience everything. It felt like, and I was experiencing everything because I had never been this, like, I never given myself permission. And I also just have a sense of urgency that's maybe I have too much, I don't know, that I've had to really work with. I've always kind of had that. And I just try and tell this to young people, like, just don't like, and this is what's frustrating. I was thinking about this on the way here because I was thinking about what I want to share. And I was like, I'm just going to let it come naturally. But it is like, I love what I do so much. And it is frustrating because sometimes at the end of the day, we cannot change other people. And that's a really fine line. I find myself just, wanting to do the most of like convincing and cajoling and that is helpful. And case by case, it varies, but we can only do so much. And my desire is to lead by example because it's the only way to teach. After contemplating for a long time, and I am a natural teacher. I became a yoga teacher soon after and started like teaching. And there's this part of me that every time I learn something, I just want to teach it. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that part of myself. I think it's cute, but I've also really taken a step back more recently from that role because I'm not here to preach. Some people maybe are, and they can, and that is their role, and that's great. But ultimately, we can lead by example, and we can encourage. And so I do my best to encourage young people, like to share my story, to sometimes scare them if I have to. I'm curious what you do, like how you work with that, with young people that are resistant.
Yeah, well, you brought up a great point of one of the most difficult things is when you want something more for someone else than they want for themselves.
Yeah.
And not to bring the shit you're going through and projecting it onto them because it's a reflection of us, right? So
yeah.
I know and this still pops in for me, but one of the things is for probably the first 10 to 15 years of doing this, every time a person would leave or not get what we had here, like I turned it into myself. Kind of like if I was better at this, I could have presented it in a different way where they would be able to hear and shave those years off. Because we've had people that will go, leave, come back 5 years later, now get it, and they're thriving a life. And that little inner critic's like, had I been able to, I could have helped them get 5 years back. And it's this internal battle, which has nothing to do with them. So I've learned.
Yeah.
It's all about my insecurities. Like, oh, okay, so how am I showing up? So one of the biggest things is if I'm working your program more than you're working your program, then I know that's a me issue as opposed to a you issue.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally.
And so a lot of the time, I remember this, this came up actually in group a few months ago, but my daughter taught me this lesson. This was a long time ago. She's a teenager now, but we were trick-or-treating, and so she wanted to leave the bucket out of our house for everybody. And so we left it out, and I'm thinking it's going to be gone in like 2 minutes. The kids come, please take one. They do the look over the shoulder, do the whole thing, and then run.
Yeah.
So we go around the block. It's a small little block. We come back, and all the candy's still there. My poor daughter's just like heartbroken. I'm like, sweetie, what's going on? She goes, I don't get it. We put it out. Why don't people want our candy? And it was like in that moment, it was so much deeper than the candy. I was like, oh my gosh. And so I'm wrestling my own stuff at the same time. Like, this is a great learning experience. I'm like, sweetie, a lot of times we give gifts in this world, but if the person doesn't want it, they don't take it, and it has nothing to do with us.
Ooh, that's so beautiful.
And so, and I remember my daughter was tiny at the time, but I'm like, man, she's so brilliant at how she's teaching me this stuff. And then where am I trying to force a gift on somebody, saying, no, take it. Maybe if it was packaged better. Maybe the person doesn't want the gift.
Yeah.
And I got to be okay. And it's the most difficult thing, because I have a fundamental belief that recovery is doable every single day, and that it is a decision. And so if I want to give a person a gift and they don't want it, I'm like, oh, it's their life, it's not mine. And then I think back to places in my life where people were giving me a gift and I was not able to see it, to hear it, to accept it.
Yeah.
And I had to go, I'm like, I'm not going to learn from your lessons. I'm going to make my own mistakes. And did that for a long time. And then I thought, okay, this has taken a lot longer than I anticipated. How do I help leverage time from the process? And that's how I started learning from other people's lessons. And one of the other fundamental beliefs, and this, I wouldn't say it pisses me off, but a lot of people say, well, you got to hit rock bottom. Like, I used to believe that. I don't believe that anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think smart people hit rock bottom themselves. Wise people see other people hit rock bottoms and go, I want to learn from that bottom, not to go there.
Yes.
And that's how we can go ahead and actually compress time. And then we can get building on what you kind of brought up of, I'm living in my state of fulfillment every day and going, man, this is great. I'm creating a life that I want to provide value to the world for as long as I can. Well, at the same time, if I go today, I'm good with my creator. And at times I'm like, I'm ready to go today. Like this was the best day ever. If this is how it ends, hell yes. And then that other part that's like, I want to do tomorrow better than today. And then that's the game.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful cycle.
That's so good.
So being okay with people not accepting your gift, it's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough one. That's so beautiful, though. It reminded me of, first of all, faith, like having faith, like recognizing that there's a bigger thing at play, and also other people's lives, like they are on their own journey and you are a part of it, but it's not your job to take over, like, and that's been a hard one. It's like, it's a control thing too. It's like, can I have faith that this person is on their journey and it has nothing to do with me? I'm here for a reason and I will do my best, but to offer my gifts and to share, and the outcome isn't up to me. Yeah. And even bigger than that, a lesson I've been learning recently is like giving love, right? Freely, or, you know, when you want to, like when I feel like giving love without any expectation of how it's received or reciprocated. And it's kind of the same thing where it's like, well, if I feel like giving love to someone or a situation, then I would like what happens next to not affect the love that I want to give. And then, of course, it's on me to be discerning with where I'm going to put that. But that's something I've been learning, and it's been really helpful in relationships and in just navigating life, where I'm not taking things as personally anymore. Yeah. Because I'm like, well, this actually has nothing to do with me. And I trust my wellspring of love and giving, and, you know, not to overgive, right? But to give in a way where I'm not expecting anything in return. Well,
and I love where this is going, because love, you said my wellspring of love. And the cool thing is it's boundless. There's infinite amount to give. And once you recognize that, because we think in a worldly view of finite, like I only have so much love to give. It's like, once we understand, no, when I can love from a place of just pure love, I don't need anything from you. I don't want anything from you. I'm just going to give you love because that's who I am. You can give love infinitely. And it's a beautiful thing. Some people get that confused with boundaries in love. So I don't want to dive into that right now, but once we recognize that, it makes life so much more fun, because if a person cuts you off when you're driving, you can still give them that love. Right. If a person pisses you off, you can still give them that love. And when you come from this place of going, I have infinite reserves of love. Why have I been holding on to this so tight and going, I'm only going to give it to you, but let's see what you do? That's an absolute game changer.
Yes, I cannot agree more. And we won't get into the boundaries in love. That was what I was referencing, because not to be confused with that, obviously we need to have boundaries.
Absolutely.
And if anything, to truly embody that, I think the boundaries need to come first. Like, you need to know where you end and where other people and things and situations begin, but doesn't take away from, that, in knowing that it's infinite.
Yeah.
And that it helps to not just, not get as insulted like that easily. So I forgot how we got onto this, but yeah.
Well, one of the other things that you said was not knowing how much to do for someone in relation to treatment and different things. And while you're sharing that, what I thought of is the law of reaping and sowing.
Yes.
And there's been so many times where I remember a client would come in, we're planting the seeds, and they would leave and not get to see the gift and the magic of growth and what happens. And for a while, I remember thinking, I'm like, oh, that was a waste. I'm a failure, like all sorts of stuff. And then a year or two later, they would end up getting it and coming back and saying, hey, do you remember saying this? And this happened quite often. Do you remember when you said this? My memory sucks. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, I don't, but that kind of sounds like something I would say. But the cool thing is they're like, man, you said that and that stuck with me. And I know I left and I raised hell there, and they're making amends. I'm like, man, we're good. But the fact that you recognize this, like, makes me so happy. But because I planted a seed as opposed to expectation, planted the seed, he allowed it to germinate. And it took a couple years, but once it started to sprout, then that's what they held on to that led to that. So there's some times where people will just come in to just have you plant the seed, and then they go, and it's not up to us of the germination process. That's up to them and their creator for what that looks like.
Yes. And we never know.
Yeah.
We never know how the things we do today are affecting the people around us for years to come. And I think that is a natural manifestation when we're living our lives with that, knowing that we're an infinite wellspring. So we can just go around planting seeds without expecting anything, and then we forget about it, and then 5 years later, there's a flower.
There's the tree in the shade.
Exactly.
So what are you looking forward to in the future?
So much. It's been such a magical, time so far since I landed in LA and then have built here. I actually, before I joined this industry, I had a yoga company. I still have it, where I was hosting these events for everybody and gathering community, kind of creating the community that I missed so much, and all about feeling liberated in your body and in your, I think about that a lot, how we are in a body in this life, but it's so small, and we're so much bigger, but we're kind of trapped inside of it. If you think, kind of. So how can we feel the most free possible while we're here? Because our body is our vessel and our home for our short time here. So I love embodiment work. So I spent a bunch of years doing that. I'm looking forward to continuing to do that and watching it manifest in a new way. So that was really fun. And then I actually became a coach for an outpatient program with clientele that very similar to, from my community, basically. So it was over Zoom. So I was in LA and they were over there, and I was really helping people that were like me. And that is another thing I'm really looking forward to doing more of, again, in its own way. Right now in my life, I feel like the least attachment I've ever felt to anything in terms of how the things that I want will manifest, because I've just learned that the best way for me is to not really think that much, and to go where I'm being taken, to to let my intuition guide the way and allow it to happen for me. The mind gets in the way a lot. But I've done a lot of work around the mind and studied a lot of psychology. I've studied depth psychology. I went to 2 LMFT programs that I did not finish yet. I don't know. Maybe I'll finish them. Maybe I won't. Everything is psychology. So I loved learning about it. So however that translates, but it's been so helpful in working with my mind and recognizing that it's a tool, it's a computer, and not to put too much attention to my thoughts, but rather to use them to my advantage. So that's another thing I'm super passionate about, of like helping us rewire our minds to find thoughts that are empowering, because if they're not empowering, why would we think them? And recognizing, like taking a step back from not getting so involved in our thoughts.
Yeah, living untethered.
Yes, The Untethered Soul. I love that book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll ask you one final question.
Yeah.
As who you are now, going back to your darkest moment, what were you needing to hear from this version of you?
It just gets better. It just gets better. Trust and let go. Like surrender to everything that you thought your life needed to be, so that you can really be present in what your life is and what it can become. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you for coming down and just sharing some of your experience and wisdom. Appreciate that.
Thank you so, so much. Wow, this has been such a beautiful conversation. I really appreciate you having me.
Yeah, ditto.
Thank you for the work you're doing in the community. It's so important and beautiful. So
thank you.